the reason I was asking you that is because I also listened to the interview, and Kane admittedly said that his wrist is not 100%. And I get every time a player says that and they rush back into the lineup, I get like Sheldon Surrey vibes. Like, just like, are we doing this too early, or what are we doing? What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. What's up, and welcome back to the Crude Oil Podcast. It is the Cujo episode, number 31. How's it going, Sean?
It's going pretty good. It's been a good week.
It's been a good week, man. I was excited to record today because of the week that we had and how great everything was.
Wait a second. Time out. Before you get ahead of yourself, you just said this was the Cujo episode. But I think it's more the Grant Fuhr episode, is it not? You're really putting Cujo above Grant Fuhr?
I'm not one of those guys that can say, I thought something was going wrong. I was like, oh shit.
No. Well, yes, something's going wrong, but not that.
I gotta put Cujo because I'm not one of those guys that can say, I never watched Grant Fuhr play.
I mean, that's fair. And me being around the same age as you, I would also say Cujo. But I feel like it's a good way to get a lot of hate, not naming the very, very popular and long-standing 80s Oilers. Yes.
That's the kind of comments that get you lynched in Edmonton.
Exactly.
Okay. For all of you listening, I was panicking because Sean and I think we found a loophole in the system and how to get our recording a little bit cleaner here. So I figured things were going astray like right off the hop. But as I was mentioning, it's been such a good week, and you know, when you go and you put down your notes for today, it's tough to find things to talk about when things are going good. Hey,
I've already made that mistake once, and I refuse to say that again. I don't want to jinx us again.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. So we'll take what's that?
I was just gonna say, I think we went 0-4 after I said that last time. So in the next week, I really want to tread lightly.
That's fair. Looking back at this last week, the Edmonton Oilers coming off the 6-2 win against the Ducks, the 7-1 thrashing against the Sharks, and then that great performance on Saturday night against the Golden Knights. Where do we want to start, man? Like, what a week.
I think just overall it was a great week. And it's hard to even pick a bad thing out of the pot, really. Like, Klim Kostin's proving to be a favorite of the city. I think everyone's rallying around him. What are your thoughts on how Kostin's played?
Man, like, this guy could not be more of a shining star of this like dud of a season of what we've had so far. Like, I am so happy with his game, and it's nice to see a guy actually excel and just love the game of hockey. You don't see that very often. Like, I think this guy is like significantly impressed himself, and it's just, I love it. I don't know about you.
I just like to see that we're giving him the opportunity. Like, he's playing in the top 6 here and there. He's consistently stapled with Nuge and Janmark now, which, to be fair, if you said that at the beginning of the year, I'd be pretty disappointed. But with the chemistry they've shown, that line specifically, like, Janmark has played fantastic. In the Vegas game, he was flying. And Nuge just continues to prove that he is more than good enough to be considered the first overall pick of his draft year, even though he's been questioned about that for years. But he's done nothing but prove people wrong this season.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Like, that line together, when you see it on paper, isn't like a something that stands out, but just the way they've been playing is like heads and tails above what you'd expect them to be, and it's great to see.
So, not to be a doomer about that line, but do you think they can keep it up? Do you think they can continue to be an effective scoring third line for us?
Well, and so we're going to get into the Kane stuff in a little bit, but that's the one thing that I wanted to like figure out. What does this lineup look when Kane comes back? Like, you're essentially, I saw some like different drafts of the lineup when he gets back in here, you're looking at having like Ryan McLeod playing on the fourth line if
Well,
you keep that third line together.
yeah, and I think it's helpful as unfortunate as it may be that Yamamoto's hurt right now. Assuming he goes on to LTIR, then Kane will be able to slide right back into the lineup without any issues. But like with a fully healthy roster, that creates a lot of question marks with A, how they can afford it, and B, how they actually want to set up the roster. Because it's hard to look at Costin or Janmark and want to take them out of the lineup with the way they've been playing. But then that essentially points fingers at like a Puljujarvi and a Foegele.
Yeah. And like Janmark was probably the first person that I had penciled off the lineup when Kane returns. But yeah, to your point, how do you pull him out?
Yeah, I would think that it would probably be some combination of like, if we look at pairs, they'll probably pair Kane and McDavid together, and then pair Draisaitl and Hyman together, and then just plug players in to those other two spots, and then probably keep this third line at least while they're hot together. Meaning you might have like Holloway and McLeod, for example, playing like, say they're doing 11 and 7. You'll have them on the fourth line, just rolling between McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nuge.
Yeah. I think I follow that the same way. Just before we leave Costin here for a second, can I air some grievances? One of my biggest pet peeves.
Please go right ahead.
I love the creativity amongst all the fans in Edmonton, but his name is Kleem, not Klim. And so all this Klim shady, we did it too. But now that, the Kleem is coming out, like, I can't stand to keep seeing these nicknames with his wrong name. I mean, I'm guilty of it, but
I agree with you that it's not the proper pronunciation, but for some reason I just like saying Klim more than Kleem.
That's fair.
So I'm going to keep doing it until somebody calls me out.
Okay,
somebody not named you. Hey, I get seen all the time, so that doesn't hurt me that much.
That's fair. Anyways, moving on. We kind of buried the lead a little bit. It sounds like Kane is going to be back sometime this week. Do we have a confirmed timeline? Because I'm seeing like different shit everywhere.
So the big thing that I've heard is it's supposed to be tomorrow, but that was barring some medical clearances that he was looking to get today.
So was that from Tim Peel?
It wasn't from Tim Peel. That was a tweet either from, I think it was Rashog or Frank Saravalli that I read this morning. Okay. But that is entirely dependent on if he clears. I think Kane thinks he's ready. He was playing with McLeod and Foegele today. So it's looking like he might be playing like, I don't know, the pseudo fourth line, like you said, because they don't want to break up any of the pairings. So yeah, it was Rashog saying that doctors were seeking clearance to play, and that was happening today. And Kane is wanting to get into the lineup, but it's just a matter if they can. But it's important to note also that Edmonton didn't put anybody on waivers. So the only possible way he can play cap-wise tomorrow is if Yamamoto goes on LTIR or there is some sort of trade.
A lot of speculation that Puljujarvi is like running down his days in Edmonton here. I don't know if that's going to end up happening, but the reason I was asking you that is because I also listened to the interview, and Kane admittedly said that his wrist is not 100%. And I get every time a player says that and they rush back into the lineup, I get like Sheldon Surrey vibes. Like, just like, are we doing this too early or what are we doing? I know this team's in a hunt for a playoffs, but like, I'm hoping that he's the one driving the itch to get back in the lineup.
Well, I think maybe part of it too is like his injuries. It's hard to say if it's 100% until he's actually seen game action to be like, yeah, I'm feeling back to normal after he scores a couple goals in a game or something. He's like, okay, yeah, this is feeling normal again. Because until you're in the moment, like, I feel like best you could ever say about any injury would be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling like 90% or 95% sure that I'm good to go.
Yeah. I hope everything's like fine and he's ready to jump back in. But can we touch on Yamamoto here? Like, has this guy been 100% yet this year?
Probably not. I wonder if he's been 100% since he's come into the league. Like outside of those first whatever 20, 30 games that he played where he was point per game, and we had the Nuge, Draisaitl, Yamamoto line, and everybody was losing their minds. Outside of then, I think he's probably been nursing some sort of injury in some capacity every single year for the past, 3 years now?
Yeah, it's a good point. I never extended it past this season, but now that you point that out, it is kind of a glaring thing. He does seem to miss like a good chunk of time every single year, but maybe that's just a byproduct of his game. But I just this year in particular, I feel like something's nagging him, and he's just not taking the proper time to get healed up. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like last year he almost played a full season. He played 81 games. And I don't know how many games he missed in the other 2 seasons because those were some COVID-riddled seasons. So I couldn't tell you for sure. But he seems like he's always got something going on. And I know he's had some concussions in the past, and I do wholeheartedly agree that it's the way he plays. Because he plays like a Hyman without the size. And that takes a toll on a small body like Yamamoto. It's not like a Gaudreau play style where he rarely gets hit or anything like that. So he's taking a beating every game, and a hit from a 250-pound guy onto a 150-pound guy is going to eventually hurt you in the worst way possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I guess we'll see what happens with Yamamoto. Maybe he does get loaned to LTIR, and then we move ahead. But yeah, lots of lineup shuffling going on here. One thing in particular, how do we approach this? First off, congratulations to Stuart Skinner. Him and his partner celebrated the birth of their child on Saturday, so it sounds like he's going to be back in net on Tuesday night. He was at least in the starters net for practice today. Of course, recording here Monday afternoon. So that sends Calvin Pickard down to the minors. I just want to open this up and get your thoughts on Campbell this past week.
I mean, he was pretty phenomenal. It's hard to look at what he did and not say that he was phenomenal. He made some huge saves, and I'm not going to say he's the only reason we beat Vegas, but he did exactly what I want from a goalie like Campbell, which is like 3 goals or less. That's all I ask. With our offense, 3 goals or less should be more than enough for us to win a game.
Totally. Totally. That fucking save against San Jose. Yeah, that was Vlasic. Just the glove save, unbelievable. I felt bad that he didn't pull it all together for the goose egg, but especially on the shot that ended up going in. But yeah, just a hell of a week for him. I think this is the Campbell revenge tour. Like, I think he's gonna build up some confidence, and we go ahead with this. So I think it was a good start. Were you surprised at all that he got back-to-back nights?
I was only surprised just because it was back-to-back, but I was less surprised considering they beat the Sharks 7-1. They only went to Vegas, which I feel like I keep saying that weird, but and it wasn't that far of travel, and he didn't have a busy night against the Sharks, so it seems pretty reasonable, and I'd rather that, considering how well he had been playing the past 2 games, than Calvin Pickard. Not any slight on Pickard, but he is our 3rd string goalie and our AHL goalie. I'd prefer he not have to start any games if possible. Yeah.
I was watching the Vegas game when Campbell's helmet flew off, and I think that pictures kind of floated around the internets and made waves. I didn't realize how bald he's going. It's kind of a shocker for everyone at home. I don't know if you saw that.
Definitely was shocked when I saw it. I will forever be like, as somebody who is balding myself, but I'm balding in the front, not on the back. I will always be like shocked that people don't shave their heads once they start balding, especially in the back, because it looks so obvious. Like, I would want to shave that, or at least comb it over or something like that. Like, no, I love Campbell, don't get me wrong, but you got to embrace the baldness once you start balding. I feel like when you're trying to save it, it's just, you'll end up looking like Kevin Shattenkirk, and it's not a good look.
That's too funny. Yeah, no, I saw that. I was like, oh, whoa. But absolutely no shame. Absolutely no shame there. Yeah, hell of a week. I mean, if we want to dive into some of these games, I think the one that kind of stood out to me, it was kind of the Sharks game because San Jose is not that bad of a team this year, and to see the way they beat up on them was kind of insane.
Well, I know Louis and Jack they brought it up multiple times, anyways, that the Sharks have had like the most one goal game losses in the league, meaning that they are in a lot of games. They don't get blown out very often versus the Ducks, for example, who have been blown out by 3 goals or more like 15 times this year. So
Yeah,
I think it's a sign that the Sharks are a good team and they have some really good players on their team. And obviously Carlson's back to form and playing really well. But I think Edmonton proved that they are more than a mid-tier team, being able to finally do what they need to do, which is slaughter the shitty teams and
yeah,
beat the good teams like the Knights.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I was looking at trends over the. I think I heard somewhere on Saturday night, or it might have been during the Sharks game, that the Oilers have produced over 40 shots on goal for the like at least 40 shots on goal for like the past like 7 games or something. Obviously, they didn't do it against Vegas, but they still considerably outshot them. And I think this is uh, a big ingredient for this team to pull out success. Like just firing pucks on net. You're not seeing them, coddle the puck and trying to set things up. A lot of just like garbage goals have gone in this past week too. So I don't know if you've noticed anything there.
Well, it's something Edmonton always misses is that they do the extra pass or they try to pick the corner and miss the net. I can vividly remember at least twice in these last 3 games that Hyman had a breakaway and he just clean missed the net trying to pick the corner versus maybe trying to shovel it 5-hole like McDavid likes to do all the time.
Yeah.
But there have been a lot more of those quote unquote garbage goals where guys just have their sticks on the ice and they're in front of the net and banging a rebound, or they cause a screen and tip the puck in, anything like that. And they don't get a lot of those, or at least at the beginning of the year, they certainly weren't.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, other things that happened this week. Vinny Desharnais makes his debut for the Oilers in Anaheim. It's funny when you looked at like we were talking about at the start of the season and how this team needs to improve, and we really need to, get more out of the draft than what we've been getting. This guy's a fucking 7th rounder who missed the NHL draft 2 years. Like he didn't get picked up for 2 years, and we got a 7th rounder starting, and he's been pretty solid on the back end.
I've been very, very impressed with him. I like his physicality. I like his speed for his size. It's been quite a surprise. If I remember correctly, he was injured in the preseason, so he never got a lot of games in. So that was one of the reasons why he never really got a chance early on to crack the lineup. But he's proven that he's a really solid player and can play the way that he needs to. I know there's been a couple moments where he's looked a little shaky. I'm not going to say he's looked bad, but he's been able to at least somewhat recover in most of those situations and salvage the play. So it's not like a Samorukov moment where he directly leads to 2 goals against in his first career NHL game. So he's really looked pretty solid, and it's been a good showing for him, honestly.
Yeah, it's nice to hear and nice to get those little unsung hero kind of stories throughout the season, and it really speaks to the depth. But I mean, do you think that was part of the decision? So I guess with that being said, I have to mention that the Oilers sent down Markus Niemelainen back to the Condors. Do you think that played? Like, do you think his play contributed to that decision?
I would say it's 50% his play contributing to that, meaning that he's the 7th defenseman, but it's also Philip Broberg, who has shown that he's been very, very solid these past, I would say, 10 games or so. He's really settling into that third pairing role and just kind of taking that role and running away with it versus at the beginning of the year, especially in the preseason, he didn't do that, but he's looked a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I was joking actually on Saturday about how you're going to have Costin, you're going to have Broberg, and then you add in Desharnais. Like, these are going to start forcing some like regular starters out of the lineup on a nightly basis.
Well, isn't that kind of what you want? You want pressure from down in the lineup
Absolutely.
that's forcing these guys to have to improve their game. Like you look at like Puljujarvi needs to improve because Kostin is really knocking at the door and looking to essentially take his place. And Desharnais is really knocking on the door to come in on that right side. And maybe if he plays well enough over these next games, I don't want to set expectations too high, but he starts putting pressure on guy like CC or Bouchard or Barry for like ice time, especially on things like the PK.
Mm-hmm.
And Broberg might start pressuring like a Kulak, for example, on that second pairing. But to be fair, Kulak has also played really well.
I was gonna say, I've heard some rumblings here, but could Kulak actually be our best trade bait, available out there?
I'm going to say no, only because who do we replace him with?
Sorry,
do you mean like a 1-for-1 swap with somebody?
I mean, in terms of defensemen available to trade, like you're probably gonna get more bites from a Kulak return than you would from a Barry at this point. In terms of your return on investment, like
I would say probably he has more value.
Yeah.
Only because his contract is a little bit cheaper and a little bit shorter. But I think Edmonton could not afford to get rid of him in any capacity unless it's a 1-for-1 trade with a guy like Gavrikov. But if you do something like that, you're trading a known quantity for somebody who might not end up fitting in with the team very well.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. And with the way he's been playing too, like why would you want to, rustle things up? I can't really complain about anything. Like why? The only change that I think the Oilers have to do is they have to move Puljujarvi, and they have to do it relatively soon because it's eating up contract. He's sitting on the fourth line. I saw somewhere on the internet today that said we'd be better off with Zach Kassian than Jesse Puljujarvi, which I'm gonna say like no to that. But I don't think you can have a $3 million player playing on that bottom line in the role that he has.
I mean, yeah, they just don't. I can't really argue with it. With the amount he's making, the ice time that he's playing, the opportunity he's getting, and what he's doing with his opportunities when he is actually given them, it's just not really enough. Like I know didn't he score at least one goal in one of these games? I can't remember which.
Yeah.
He scored against San Jose, and I don't know if he scored against Anaheim, but he is just kind of been upended by Kostin. Honestly, it's hard not to look at it that way. And it's similar with like Fogel being upended by Janmark. And that's why there's been rumors of Fogel potentially getting traded. Even though he did have a really good start to the year and was playing really well, after he got hurt, he's come back and he hasn't really been overly effective.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here. Just thinking of radical changes that could potentially happen. But do you see a scenario in which Dylan Holloway gets moved out of the lineup?
I could see it in the case that Kane comes back and Holloway's stewing on the fourth line, and they'd rather just have him go down to the AHL and play like top line minutes, top power play minutes, and put in a guy like a Devon Shore or a Derek Ryan or something like that to fill in for his position, especially if they're running 11-7 and they don't really need that many forwards on the roster, and then have Holloway be more of a black ace come playoff time. It's like, as good as he's been at times, he does only have 3 goals and like 5 assists this year.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Like in the role, like he obviously hasn't had a lot of opportunity to succeed. We saw him like playing on the top line with McDavid this past week. But like when Kane comes back, does he just move right back down to like the third and fourth line? Like, what do you do with him? I don't know. But I mean, back to your point about Yamamoto, like it's not a good thing, but the availability is there.
Well, I think that's the big word that you just use is availability. Like he's waiver eligible. So if they're going to send somebody down between Holloway, Fogel, Puljujarvi, Derek Ryan, Devon Shore, like he's the one who is waiver eligible. Like, yes, he's making league minimum, but do you just send him down just because he can?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know what you wind up doing. This team is just it's a wealth of riches, really, hey?
I would say in some regards. I'd say we have some, like, the top end talent is the top end talent. And then we just have a lot of mid players, like in terms of production, let's just say, that are all kind of just being juggled around. So there's nobody really pushing into the lineup outside of like a Costin who's that much of a surprise at this point.
Well, and that's what I love about. Sorry, finish your thought there.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and Janmark as well.
Yeah. I that's what I was gonna say is, and I'll add Janmark into that. The one thing that I love about Costin is he's producing, but he's producing on the third line as well, and I think that's something we haven't had. The knock on Edmonton has always been that if they're succeeding, it's because they're playing with McDavid and Draisaitl, and if they're failing, it's because they're not playing with McDavid and Draisaitl. And it's nice to see like the success come from outside of those minutes. I think a couple of those points for Costin this past week, but you've got a guy making $800,000 for the Edmonton Oilers this year, and he's got 9 goals, which is one more than the guy down Highway 2 making $11 million, like in Jonathan Huberdeau. I just love to see it. Love to see it.
Yeah, I just like the big thing I really want is like I'm very happy that a guy like Costin and Janmark are pushing into that third line, and rather than playing fourth line or sitting in the press box. But we need guys to step up and push into the top 6. Like, and like I'm going back to like the Yamamotos and the Puljujarvis and even the Fogels and the Holloways, like these guys who we need somebody to step up, and none of them really seem to be taking that step to be able to take that open spot in the top 6.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. Just looking at some of the notes. One thing I got in a conversation, I'm not going to say who this is because I don't want to don't want to throw them under the bus here, but I was having a conversation with someone over the past week after the Gene Principe thing with McDavid on his birthday.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how like divisive people are over Gene Principe. Like, I think he's an icon in Edmonton. But I feel like you're either one or the other.
Yeah, people either love or hate him. And I thought you were going to bring up his interest in the old furry convention on Saturday, but
what? Whoa! What?
You didn't hear about that?
No.
Yeah, he said that like before the game, he met like some people that were wearing like furry costumes, and they were talking about how they're going to a convention and everything like that, and he was interested potentially on checking it out, and they're like, I feel like Gene needed some convincing afterwards. We're like, Gene, please, like, let's not do this.
That's amazing. That is amazing. No, I wish I would have saw that. But yeah, it's weird. It's just either one or the other. People just cannot like pick between.
Well, I think that it's the people who like cringe and don't like cringe, because like
That's fair.
He lives in that zone of I'm going to make puns that are going to make people cringe or roll their eyes. And some people like that shit, and some people really can't stand it. Like, I know, for example, I watched a documentary on HBO the other day that has a lot of cringy stuff in it. And the person I was watching it with, they couldn't even like look at the screen because they were like, this is too much for me. I can't do this. And I'm watching it and I'm laughing because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, like my fiance can't watch The Office because of Michael Scott. So
well, exactly. It's things like that. So I think it comes down to people can handle cringe comedy and people can't handle cringe comedy.
He's a winner in my books, man.
Hey, I love Gene too, and I think he's what people look at for actually making a presence as like an intro guy. Like how many other opening analysts, I guess I don't know the actual term for them, or hosts for something, can you like name off the top of your head who actually you remember their name, and every day you're like, wait, if he's not here, where is he?
Yeah, it's a good point. Like he's very unique. Yeah, looking at other news and notes, you just had the one thing about Nuge there.
Nuge has now moved. That was sometime in the last week. I think it was in the Anaheim game, potentially, but he moved into 9th place in Oilers all-time scoring, which is
that's fucking incredible. Wild. Man, like
he's been around for a while already. It's hard to think about the fact that he's been here for this long, but yeah, he just passed Doug Weight for number 9 on the list. He's now up 4 points on him at 581 points. He's only
Good for
50 points
Nooch.
behind Ryan Smith.
Oh, he's gonna eclipse that. Hey, like
Yeah,
in
he
no
might
time.
do it this season. Who knows?
Yeah, with the pace that he's on the ripper he's on. Dude, so I think I've heard this before, but playoff points do not count towards this. Is that correct?
I believe so. I think it's just regular season points. Like you
Right,
can look
right.
at it, it's probably just a different thing overall where it's like the all-time playoff points, which is hard. I
Mhm.
don't think any of the current Oilers outside of maybe McDavid and Draisaitl are going to be able to make an impact on that just because we've missed the playoffs so many times over the past whatever like 10 years. So a guy like Nude,
Yeah.
for example, just hasn't had enough games to even be on that list.
Well, I mean, that just speaks to the production that he has with the points.
Oh, exactly.
Taking a look at this upcoming week, we've got Tuesday against Seattle. This will be the last one of the year. Feels like we've played Seattle at least once a week for the past 6 weeks. Tampa Bay on Thursday, Saturday against Vancouver. Vancouver is in one hell of a predicament right here. I feel bad for Bruce Boudreau. Like, I feel like they're just dragging this man's heart out of his chest.
Man, every week we somehow end up talking about Vancouver and it's never good.
It's like that car accident you just can't look away from.
Well, it's just a joke. Like for anybody who doesn't know, now there's a bunch of drama about the Tanner Pearson injury, how it was mistreated by the medical staff. And apparently the medical staff also messed it up last year with another injury to somebody else, but it turns out they fired that medical staff during the summer and this is a different medical staff, but now they're having the same problem. It's just very confusing. Like this is apparently Tanner Pearson's going to have surgery for the 4th time on the same hand.
See, I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, then this is the most recent news on it. And this was all brought to light because apparently Quinn Hughes brought it up in a post-game interview.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and now they're doing an internal investigation on the medical team.
Holy shit. What a tire fire.
Just remember whenever you're like, oh, I don't like Bob Nicholson, I don't like Daryl Cates, I don't like the Oilers management, it can be way worse.
Yeah, yeah. And they do have an owner that likes to have his hands in the mud the entire time too. So I don't know what's going to wind up happening with them. I heard today
rumors that like Pettersson wants to leave, and like obviously Horvat's going to get probably traded, and it's because JT Miller sucks ass. Like, it just makes me sick thinking about it.
Yeah, no kidding. I forget what I was going to say, but yeah, just Vancouver, tough time. Oh, I saw that they need to do a complete inventory and I think they said an autopsy of their lineup, but they don't want to commit to a rebuild. Like,
well, that's the big thing with Vancouver is they refuse to commit to a rebuild. Ever since the Sedins left, they should have just done it and bit the bullet. But like,
no kidding.
The whole bringing JT Miller thing in to that team is, in the way I see it, it would be the equivalent of Edmonton bringing in Kane last season. And Kane being the like absolute toxic human being that people thought he was going to be. Like, luckily he turned out to be a great person for this team and great in the locker room. But imagine if he would have came in and just been a complete cancer to the locker room, like people were expecting.
Well, and I feel there's an element of Vancouver just dealing with a sunk cost fallacy. Like they've committed so much to this, and
well, yeah, you know what I mean? They're paying Tyler Myers. They're paying like Ekman Larson. They have these not so great contracts on these players, and they just are like, well, there's no point in rebuilding. We have these guys that we can't trade because their contracts are too shitty. So let's just keep sticking it out, and we'll keep trading first-round picks for players that don't make much of an impact. They'll probably re-sign Kuzmenko for some reason, even though they'd be better off just selling him at the trade deadline for assets.
No kidding. Honestly, like for a little bit there, I don't know why, but Jesse Puljujarvi seems like a perfect fit in Vancouver. I don't know why.
Hey, I'd be down for like a Puljujarvi for Kuzmenko trade or something like that, because Kuzmenko has that league mid salary, so it would be very nice to have like pretty much triple Puljujarvi's production for that player.
Yeah, totally. So nice, quick little homestand for Edmonton. We'll get back into the rip of things. Hopefully that the record continues. Maybe this team, like Vegas, I know a lot of people are skeptical. They're like, let's worry about the the couple points. Edmonton is not like off Vegas's radar in terms of catching them.
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of talk about how Edmonton's kind of out of it, and we're going to be just straight fighting for a wild card spot this season. But if we have an ending to this year, let's just say similar to last year, then we could easily push into the like 1, 2, or 3 spot, like at least the 3. But like, I don't know, with the way Seattle's playing, it might be hard to catch them. But we're only 5 points back of both Seattle and LA, and 7 points back of Vegas. So it's not out of the question that we can easily push into that area. It will be very difficult, especially because Calgary's also tied in points with us.
Yeah.
But
so
it's not out of the question.
I saw a thing today that they're projecting the playoff cutoff to be at, I think they said 20. Sorry, I'm getting my numbers mixed up. 93.5 points. And so that would basically mean the Oilers have to go 20, 16, and 1 on the remaining games, which would be, I think, a very disappointing, like belabored team heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, if they had that record going into the playoffs, I'd be very, very disappointed. My hope would be if it's, 2016 and 1, so that's 37 games left. Like, if they don't win, I'll say 25 of those games, I'll be disappointed. Like, if they were 25 and 12 or something like that, then I'd be very happy.
Yeah, definitely. We're coming into... Sorry,
I was just going to say, with this roster, the way that they're set up, like, I think they should have double as many wins as losses. Like, that's how the season should end. They should have, like, 50 wins, 25 losses, or whatever that comes out to in 82. That should be around the level that I would hope for.
And I don't love it when a team comes blowing their load at the start of the season, like Toronto seems to do every year, and then they like run out of steam come playoff time. I think every like team that's destined for a long playoff run has like the first kind of stumbling blocks for the first months, and then picks up. Where I'm going with this is I keep going back every week to check on the standings. And this Boston Bruins team is fucking for real, man.
Dude, it's terrifying. They're a terrifying team. I don't understand how they're as good as they are, but like it's pretty intense when they can comfortably play Taylor Hall on the third line and not even think about it.
Well, no shit. I was watching the Leafs game and on Saturday before the Oilers, and they had a power play there in the third period. And Taylor Hall sat on the bench the entire power play. I'm like, holy shit.
Like, well, just for reference, they have a plus 72 goal differential, which is plus 32 more than the next closest team in New Jersey at plus 40.
Yeah, it's just wild, man. Just wild.
They're like the Tampa Bay record-breaking levels of like playing well.
Yeah. I would not be shocked at this pace if they break some records this year, because they've 4 regulation losses this season.
They have 5 now, but they only have 1 regulation loss at home. Yeah, they lost recently. I can't remember when or how, but yeah, it's just mind blowing, and it makes me feel like an idiot, because I feel like me, along with many other people, have been sitting here for years being like, yeah, Boston's gonna fall off. Just you wait. Bergeron can't keep this up forever.
That's the big thing, is like how Patrice Bergeron is playing the way he's playing at his age is like, just head turning.
Well, and they lose a guy like Chara finally, and you're like, oh, their defense is gonna fall off. But then they trade for Lindholm, and he's playing like a Norris candidate, and obviously they have McAvoy, who's like unreal, and we're just sitting here, and not too much shade on Nurse, but he's not playing to the same level as those guys are, and he's getting paid more than both of them. But to be fair, I wanted to mention, because I forgot to mention earlier, like I do want to give Nurse some props that he has quieted down his game a little bit, and there's been significantly less amount of times I've yelled at my TV when he has the puck.
A quiet nurse is a good nurse, I think.
I will scream that from the rooftops honestly. The quieter he plays his game, the better he is. And he needs to just cool it. And I think he's been doing that, and it's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got not playoffs, the All-Star game coming up. It's not next week, right? It's the week afterwards. So
I think so.
Because the Oilers have a bye week as well.
I think the bye week is coming up because they play Saturday against Vancouver, and then they have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. Then they play Columbus, and then they have Thursday, Friday off. Then they play Chicago on Saturday. Like, there's a lot of 2-day gaps in between games. So the All-Star game, I don't even know when the All-Star game is.
I don't know. I can't stand to watch them very much. I'm not February a huge fan 4th. Of it. Okay, that makes sense. I know that I heard McDavid being interviewed, just talking about his. I think it's on Tim and Friends, but they were asking him about the All-Star game, and he's mentioning how it's not an All-Star game unless Leon Draisaitl's there, and he just made a joke about how he's like, well, he better be going to the game because we have plans for the bye week. So I guess we still have to do our part and vote in Draisaitl, but.
Anybody who's listening on Twitter, make sure you get involved in that fan vote. Vote for Draisaitl and vote for Nuge too. I think Nuge has more than earned his spot at the All-Star game this year.
No shit. Good inclusion there. Yeah.
And just for reference, they play Chicago on Saturday, January 28th, and then they play Detroit on Tuesday, February 7th. So there's an entire week and 2 days off. So 9 days off between those games.
Well, we'll have to discuss and figure out what we're doing for that. Maybe we all deserve a little bit of a break from the season, and then we make the push for playoffs. But for right now, the Edmonton Oilers are on a heater, and man, life is good.